Charles's voice sliced through the kitchen clamor, sharp as a cleaver cutting through bone. "Cynthia, bring me some tea, now." I paused, my hands submerged in soapy water, the warm suds clinging to my fingers. My eyes darted toward the towering pile of dirty dishes, the remnants of another chaotic family meal. For a brief moment, I considered ignoring him, pretending I hadn't heard, but the sharpness in his tone left no room for hesitation. "I'm doing the dishes," I replied, my voice low but steady, hoping it might placate him. His response came quickly, laced with disbelief and the same cold impatience that had become his trademark. "Stop that and bring me the tea quickly. Can't you follow simple orders?" The words stung more than they should have. I swallowed my frustration, my mouth opening to protest. "But useless," he interrupted, his voice cutting through my attempt at an explanation like a whip. Before I could recover, another voice chimed in, this one sugary but no less commanding. "Make me some sweet coffee, please." It was Kelly, my mother-in-law, reclining on the worn living room sofa like a queen on her throne. She held a delicate porcelain plate in one hand, balancing a half-eaten slice of cake she'd plucked from the fridge. Her eyes sparkled with something almost playful, as if issuing commands was her favorite pastime. I let out a long, weary sigh, my gaze falling once again on the mountain of dirty dishes. My hands, still wet and soapy, itched to keep scrubbing, if only to avoid confronting the reality of my servitude. "There are so many," I murmured to no one in particular, the words more a reflection of my inner state than an observation about the dishes. "Leave them for later," Kelly said, her tone dismissive, as though the mess was inconsequential. "Just do what we say, useless wife." Charles's words echoed her sentiment, ringing in my ears like a cruel refrain. Useless, always so useless. I am Cynthia, a 30-year-old working mother, though that title feels hollow in this house. Here, I am not a partner, not a respected individual. I am a servant, a presence to be tolerated but never valued, a ghost haunting the corridors of my own life. Our 5-year-old son is my only light, my only solace in a life that feels increasingly like a dungeon. He's the reason I endure the venomous words, the dismissive glares, and the suffocating expectations. We live in Charles's childhood home, a place I reluctantly agreed to move into years ago under the guise of helping Kelly cope with the loss of her husband. Back then, I had thought it was an act of compassion, a temporary arrangement to help a grieving widow, but it quickly became clear that I was a pawn in a much larger, more insidious game, a game Kelly had mastered long before I entered the picture. No matter how much I did, how tirelessly I worked, cooked, cleaned, it was never enough. My meals were criticized with venomous precision. "This sautéed vegetables and shrimp is so half-hearted," Kelly sneered one evening, pushing her plate away. "Cook it properly from scratch." "I'm busy, I can only make simple things," I said, my voice strained but controlled, as I tried to explain. Her response was immediate, sharp as a slap. "That's why I hate back talk from a daughter-in-law. Cook from scratch." On another day, in a rare moment of defiance, I dared to ask, "Why don't you cook?" The words left my lips before I could think better of it. Her reply was icy and dismissive, a dagger aimed straight at my sense of self-worth. "Why would I do housework when you're here?" From then on, she stopped even pretending to acknowledge me as a person. I was reduced to an invisible presence, a machine designed to fulfill their whims. 6 years passed in this oppressive fog, 6 years of enduring barbs that cut deeper than I realized at the time. My son grew older, but the atmosphere in the house remained stagnant, heavy with tension and unspoken resentment. Kelly, now 65, seemed to take perverse joy in my misery. Charles was no better, treating me as if I were an accessory to his life rather than his partner. One evening, after a grueling day at work, I trudged home, the weight of exhaustion pressing down on me. As I stood in the kitchen, preparing dinner, Sichuan chili chicken, crispy fish fillets, and a beef and broccoli stir-fry, I felt an overwhelming sense of futility. I cooked with a robotic precision, hoping the food might bring some semblance of normalcy to our fractured family dynamic, but deep down, I knew it wouldn't. As I placed the final dish on the table, Charles's voice cut through the silence. "Bring me the mayo," he said, his tone flat and expectant. I turned to him, my movements slow and deliberate. "Sure, here you are." I handed him the jar, my voice devoid of emotion. It was the first time he had spoken to me in days, not to ask how I was or to share a kind word, just another order. I stared at the mayo in his hand, a small but significant symbol of everything that had gone wrong. It was the final straw. Something inside me snapped, the threads of patience and endurance fraying until they finally gave way. This wasn't a life, it was a prison, and I could no longer justify staying silent. I refused to be their punching bag any longer. As expected, the conversation veered toward financial matters, their favorite weapon. "You think you can just take our son and leave?" Charles sneered. "How will you support him on your own?" I met his challenge with unwavering calm. "I've been supporting this family for years, Charles. I'll manage just fine." Kelly let out a sharp laugh, her contempt palpable. "You're nothing without us. You'll come crawling back, begging to return." But their words no longer pierced me. They held no power over the clarity I had gained or the resolve that now fueled me. The next day, I met with my lawyer again, meticulously planning our strategy. "We'll focus on their financial dependence on you," my lawyer explained, outlining the custody battle and asset division. I nodded, finally feeling like I had an ally. For the first time in years, I felt supported, not just by the law but by my own sense of worth. At home, tensions escalated to a fever pitch. Kelly's insults grew more venomous, her desperation showing. "You think you're clever," she hissed one evening, her tone dripping with malice. I stood my ground, unshaken. I had seen the depths of their manipulation and cruelty. Now, I was ready to close this chapter of my life. "You're abandoning your family," Kelly accused, her eyes narrowing with disdain. I met her glare head-on, my voice steady and clear. "No, I'm finally standing up for myself." Charles chimed in, his voice laced with fury. "You'll regret this. You can't survive without me." But his threats felt hollow now. I had moved past fear. As the court date drew nearer, I prepared meticulously. Financial records were organized, their verbal abuse documented, and witnesses ready to testify. Every step I took brought me closer to freedom. One quiet afternoon, while sorting through paperwork, my son approached hesitantly. "Mom, are we going to be okay?" he asked, his small voice trembling with uncertainty. I pulled him into a tight embrace, my resolve hardening. "Yes, sweetheart, we're going to be just fine. We're leaving this place and starting a new, happy life, just you and me." His arms wrapped around me tightly, and in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that I was doing the right thing. The day of the court hearing finally arrived. A mix of dread and anticipation churned within me as I entered the courtroom, ready to confront the people who had stolen so many years of my life. Charles's lawyer painted him as a devoted husband and father, while Kelly cast herself as a grieving mother-in-law, mistreated by an ungrateful daughter-in-law. Their performance was polished but transparent. When my turn came, I stood with quiet composure and spoke my truth. "For years, I have been the sole breadwinner of this family, while my husband's unemployment and his mother's manipulative tactics have only worsened our struggles." Charles interrupted, his tone laced with false indignation. "Cynthia, how can you say such things?" I turned to face him, my gaze unwavering. "Support isn't measured by words, Charles, it's measured by actions, and yours have been nothing but selfish and cruel." Piece by piece, I presented my evidence, financial records, recordings of their abusive remarks, and testimonies from neighbors painted a damning picture. With each revelation, Charles's facade cracked, and Kelly's smugness dissolved into visible panic. The final blow came when my lawyer revealed damning photographs and documents, proof not only of Charles's infidelity but also of Kelly's secret affair with a neighbor, Jacob. Gasps rippled through the courtroom as the evidence was displayed. Charles's face turned pale, while Kelly's expression twisted in anger. "You invaded our privacy," she screeched, her voice shrill and frantic. I met her fury with calm resolve. "No, I simply uncovered the truth, a truth you've worked hard to bury." The judge called for order, but their credibility was irreparably shattered. In the end, justice prevailed. The judge awarded me full custody of our son, with assets divided equitably. Charles and Kelly were left with nothing but their tarnished reputations. As I stepped out of the courtroom, an immense weight lifted from my shoulders. The years of manipulation and cruelty were finally behind me. Outside, my son ran to me, his face radiant with relief. "We did it, Mom," he exclaimed, his joy infectious. I knelt to hug him, tears of triumph welling in my eyes. Yes, sweetheart, we did it, we're free now, this is the start of our new life. Hand in hand, we walked away, leaving behind the shadows of the past. For the first time in years, the future felt bright, a future filled with hope, love, and the promise of a better tomorrow.